Hello. Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to see you. I am hoping that we do not have a technical problem this time. I have to say, for the first time in almost 200 episodes, we had one last week, and I've developed a slight PTSD about it. But I tested the system and it works, and I'm super excited because today we have an important conversation, and it's an exciting conversation. It's with someone I've known for a long time and wanted to interview for quite a while, and she finally had time. Adriana, without further ado, welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Everything seems to be working. I'm so excited to see you. For those folks who haven't met you, please introduce yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Olga, for inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. I'm a big fan, and I'm very passionate about a topic we're going to be talking about today, so very excited to be here. But I'm Chief Compliance Officer at a payments processing company. We partner with banks and financial institutions and merchants on behalf of whom we process online payments from consumers. And I'm currently responsible for basically all types of compliance programs within my company, which for us tends to focus on anti-money laundering, sanctions compliance, privacy and data security, anti-bribery and corruption, as well as consumer protection.
Yeah, in a payment company, that's a really important big job. I'm just curious. I actually want to dive into how you got there. But what is your typical day? What is a typical day of a compliance officer of a payment company?
So it varies greatly, honestly, and that's one of the things that I love about being a compliance officer. It can range from dealing with a government inquiry. We are regulated in both, to some extent in the US, but mainly in EU, and we have a wholly owned subsidiary in Europe as well. And so we can get questions from regulators. They can be questions from consumers as well as potential complaints. They can be law enforcement can reach out to maybe for information about certain transactions. We may be proactively also reporting some transactions to law enforcement or filing suspicious activity reports to the regulators. They can be just day-to-day, reviewing and updating policies. Obviously, keeping track of all the changes and updates and regulations is a huge thing. Especially in this space, regulations change all the time. And obviously, technology plays a large role in that as well. So anytime there's a new type of payment, the regulators get on it. Like crypto is a big thing, obviously, nowadays. So you have to keep up with it. Then there are board meetings that I attend on a quarterly basis and reports I make to the board as well. There are questions you may get from merchants that we process for, as well as our banking partners. They do their due diligence and ongoing due diligence that they're required to do to make sure that we know what we're doing and that we're complying with the regulations. So there's lots of variety.
Wow, that sounds like a massive, massive, massive job. And it gives me a deja vu of my experiences as the only lawyer for debit processing services at Visa Inc. So I now remembered, and we could have a very deep conversation about your approaches. I actually would have loved to compare notes. But let me ask you the question that I really wanted to ask is, how did you become a compliance officer? What happened before? How did you go in-house? What was the path to being a compliance officer? Because a lot of folks are considering this path. It's an obvious path for a lawyer, especially those who understand product and business and law. Somewhere between product law and compliance. That's where you end up. So I'm curious, how did you do it?
So I initially worked for a law firm, private law firm, for a couple of years, and I quickly realized that I was better suited to be in-house. So I think, as most attorneys don't realize necessarily before they get into practicing law, I think we all get into to service the clients, to do good. But then I think we don't necessarily realize that the business of law requires like selling your services, promoting yourself, and finding clients, being a rainmaker. And I'm not necessarily that well suited for that type of activity. So I love the idea of when you're in-house, you take care of all day-to-day things that your company needs. But we have a sales department that's responsible for actually going out and finding clients for us. But when I went in-house, I went in-house doing mostly what I think a lot of people do when they go in-house, which is I was initially hired as a corporate counsel to negotiate and draft contracts, both between us and the merchants and us and our banking partners, and everything that goes along with it. So amendments of those contracts, assignments of those contracts, due diligence, and so on. And then over the years, I've been with my company for over 2 decades, so a long time. But over the years, as our policies and procedures got a little more complex and our business in general got a lot more regulated, there was a lot more stuff that got added to my plate. So initially in 2008, during the Great Recession, you may recall that government bailed out a lot of banks and financial institutions, and they obviously wanted to make sure the funds were not being used for criminal activity. And so a lot of banks and our own banking partners were very focused on making sure they know who they're doing business with and who their clients are doing business with. And so due diligence, customer due diligence became, knowing your customer and anti-money laundering in general became very big focus for them and very important for the companies like mine. And so in 2008, I got certified in anti-money laundering and took over that program. And then in 2015, with the rise of GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation in EU, privacy became a hot topic. So I got certified in privacy and took over that program as well. And then a few years ago, as you know, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, sanctions compliance became very important. So again, I got certified in that as well, and took over that program. And little by little, essentially, I became responsible for all those areas that I talked about, which again includes anti-money laundering, sanctions compliance, privacy, data security, anti-bribery and corruption, and consumer protection. Oops, are you on mute?
I like how you think about this sort of certification, application, and certification, and kind of to serve your client. So I actually, so you for privacy you have IAPP certification.
Yes.
For what do you have for the others? Because I think this is actually kind of interesting. I've seen a few people do it this way. I think this approach works. There is a pass for this. So what are the other 2 certifications?
Yes, the other 2 are through Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, also known as ACAMS. It's a big worldwide association that deals mostly with the people that work for financial services. Although there are some people that work in trade compliance as well for a wider range of companies. But they initially focused very much on banks and financial institutions, and then they kind of expanded to fintech, crypto, payment processors, and payment schemes and whatnot. So there really is a great variety of people that belong to it. But they offer several different certifications, and I have both the anti-money laundering certification and the sanctions compliance certification, as well as crypto certification as well through them. I find it to be a very valuable, and to be perfectly honest, I don't get certifications so I can tell people that I'm certified, but I'm one of those people that I have to absolutely know what I'm doing before I take anything on. So and in your day-to-day, you tell yourself you're gonna learn stuff, but like obviously we're all busy, and so when you have an exam set up and there's date coming up, then you will get it done. So that's really the reason why I got certified, is that it forced me to actually learn the topic and the material before taking anything on.
Really cool. I love your tag because I see a lot of lawyers today take certifications about AI, for example, specifically AI governance. IAPP has one. There's a few industry one, not specifically for legal and compliance. I don't know if you're thinking about one, if you have any thoughts about it, because that's a question that comes up often, and I know for a fact that folks would be interested to know your insights, because you definitely very intentional about your certification, both
Yes.
obtaining them, studying for them, and then applying them.
Yeah, I highly recommend getting certified in whatever you're interested in, or more importantly, if you actually have to take that on within your company. As I said, to me, it's a way to get access to the network that you need, and for questions that may come up in the future. Like obviously, again, all of these associations have literally tens of thousands of members. And then again, you will gain expertise just by learning the material that these associations provide through those certification courses. There's no question about it that there's really valuable material. And then obviously, as you work day to day, it gets easier and you learn stuff as well. But I highly recommend. I wouldn't take them just again so that you can put it. I saw a post recently on LinkedIn where somebody had like, it's like a soup abbreviations of next to your name. I don't even put them. I mean, they're on my LinkedIn, but not after my name by any means. Again, the point isn't so I could tell people that I'm certified. The point is just, again, know what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. So I highly recommend them for that purpose.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk about community service and pro bono. That's actually, we can talk about payments all day and certifications, but I know you have this passion, and we connected over this passion. And let's start with sort of in the beginning. Where did you get that inspiration? How did you sort of become passionate about pro bono and community service? And then how did it evolve over time?
So I originally come from the country that no longer exists, which in and of itself is pretty surreal and disorienting experience. But before it ceased to exist, it went through a pretty brutal and bloody civil war. And so what happened is that we had a lot of people, what we at the time referred to as refugees, and that I actually later on learned through volunteering with Doctors Without Borders at an exhibition in LA, were really technically internally displaced people, which are people that have left their neighborhoods due to the fighting that went on in their neighborhoods, and came to my part of the country, and they literally had nothing. We literally had to provide shelter, food, clothing, everything, and that went on for years. Because they couldn't go back to where they came from. And that was all happening when I was just 15 years old. So it had a huge impact on me. And I know that, a lot of people do realize that, you can obviously find yourself in a wrong place at the wrong time. I think for most people, particularly in this country, the possibility that something may seriously go wrong, like that you may all of a sudden find yourself in a war zone, seems pretty remote and theoretical. But I think for me, because of those experiences so early on in my childhood, that possibility seems very real to this day, very tangible. And so I've always felt very, very grateful for the fact that I get to live in the country that I live in, and that I get to live the life that I get to live every day. And so I've always tried to give back and volunteer in the communities that I have always lived in.
Very, very interesting. Where are you from?
I'm originally from former Yugoslavia.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, wow. So that must have been an experience that really shaped the way you look at what matters.
Yep,
And
exactly.
I'm curious, how did before and after happen? Because that conflict was there for a while. It was pretty brutal,
Yep.
and it must have shaped the way you look at the world.
It definitely did. I mean, in all honesty, I don't think any of us believed that it was going to get to where it did get to, and that neighbors were going to be fighting against neighbors. To this day, it's an experience that I can't believe, and I feel horrible about the whole experience. And I wish. I mean, I love my country. And I wish that none of it happened. And especially in my case, I was actually born on the coast, but I lived in an entirely different part of the country I belong to an ethnic minority, so I always felt safe in my country. And as I said, I loved every part of it. I loved that we had mountains, seacoast, we had everything. And then, one day you wake up and it's all turned upside down. So it was definitely a very tough experience.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Oddly enough, I've never been in war zone. Thankfully, as a child or an adult, but I was born in Ukraine, and I'm living through
Yep.
experiences of my middle school friends with whom I'm connected on social media, and it is traumatic for me to be in the United States, experience it far
Yep.
away every time, even sort of in small things that they now normalize and assume as a baseline. And I always sort of say, well, I there's things that I didn't have in my childhood, but I did have safety. Like I had,
Yeah,
like I wasn't worried about bombs.
exactly.
We had all kinds of things, but
Yeah,
the bomb alerts were not part of that experience.
yeah,
And so and that just sounds to me like sci-fi, really. So
yeah.
so it would do take that piece for granted. I take it for granted.
Yeah,
Uh,
it tends to put everything into perspective.
it definitely does. It definitely, and to me, it's still surreal. But it's interesting how quickly, when you are in war zone, you sort of change your baseline. Okay,
Yeah,
well, like we're just not gonna wake up and like walk out in the middle of the
yeah,
night, Whereas I get upset when my cat jumps at me at night, and I and I consider highly to close the door. Clearly have different problems. Um,
yeah.
so let's talk about sort of the ways you've been able to give back into pro bono community services. What do you see others kind of when
Yeah.
you approach this community service pro bono in sort of intentional, structured
Mhm.
way, so that you actually have an impact? What have you seen, and how do you like to approach it?
Yeah, so there are many, like endless ways of getting involved in pro bono community service. So, for example, law schools offer a lot of pro bono and community service opportunities to their own alumni. So, like my law school, for example, Pepperdine University, go Waves, did offer and still does to this day opportunity for its alumni to judge moot court competitions, to mentor law students. And there's also this big annual community service day called Step Forward Day, where alumni anywhere they may be in the world can get involved in local community service projects. Then I think there are bar associations literally of every kind that offer these opportunities as well. So my experience is mostly with Texas and California, which are two places that I have lived in since I became a lawyer. But so for example, Texas, I know for sure. And I think the last newsletter I got from California Bar Association, which I belong to, also has just made the same thing available to its own members, which is an online portal where you can go to and look for different pro bono opportunities that are available. Some are and require full-blown representation from like beginning to the end of a case. Some are more limited scope. Some can be done remotely. Others require actually representing a client in the courtroom. And there are also different types of cases that you can take on. And some require that you should be a licensed lawyer within that state. Others just your licensed attorney in the US. So there are very different approaches you can take on. Then for those that are in-house, more importantly and more relevant to us is the fact that there are local chapters of Association of Corporate Counsel, or ACC, that also offer these opportunities. So for example, I chair pro bono committee of the Austin chapter of ACC currently, and we offer at least one pro bono and one community service event per quarter, and sometimes more. So that's another avenue. Another is a lot of these nonprofits provide opportunities directly to get involved with them to take on certain matters. So, for example, KIND, or Kids in Need of Defense, is one of the nonprofits that I have worked with in the past. They provide opportunities to get involved with representing unaccompanied minors, which would be minors that have crossed the border with no parent or a guardian. Then Lawyers for Warriors, for example, is another nonprofit that I currently work with. That provides opportunities to provide assistance to veterans, mostly in discharge upgrades and in obtaining benefits and anything else that veterans may need. Then there's volunteer legal services in Central Texas that allows, again, attorneys to get involved in different matters, mostly landlord-tenant disputes, but really a great variety of matters. Then there are some companies, particularly large ones, that have their own formal pro bono programs and that provide opportunity to members of their own legal department to get involved. And then on top of that, if that wasn't enough, there are cities across this great country that provide a lot of different ways and opportunities to get involved in community service. So for example, in LA, there's the annual LA Works Day, which basically is an event where thousands of people, literally it's a large scale event, thousands of people show up, and usually they will meet at a local school that's located in an underserved area. And then they basically clean up the school, they paint, they do all kinds of things to make a school look better for their students. Then there's a Earth Day cleanup in Austin, for example. It's an annual community service day where hundreds of people, again, show up in different parks all across Austin to clean them up. So there are literally like endless ways to get involved, and I have used every one of them.
Oh, I love that. I love how there's absolutely no shortage, and there are absolutely no shortage of opportunities and ways, really.
Yeah.
I love how you listed this richness and variety in Texas, California, also all over the United States, and kind of gave a flavor of what's possible, which is really anything. And I love how that sort of buffet is there for you. You just have to help yourself. And I just want to talk maybe a little bit about obstacles because attorneys are busy. I guess that is nothing new. I hope that was not the most enlightening statement I ever made. But I'm curious, like, what obstacles do you see, sort of expected and unexpected? And then, do you have strategies for overcoming them so that that service that for many people that is the guiding sort of North Star for going to law school, you don't have to choose between doing well for yourself and doing right for the world. So you can realize that it doesn't have to be an or, it could be an and. And so how do you change your mindset and your actions to make sure that you can do both?
Yeah, so some of the obstacles are, as you mentioned, lack of time is a big one among attorneys. But there's also, I think, a lot of a perception, at least by attorneys, that oftentimes, especially for those of us that are in-house, that we may not have necessarily the skills or that we don't practice in the areas of law that is needed by the underserved population. So for example, immigration tends to be a big one. And while I've gone through the entire legal immigration process in the US and have personal experience, I don't necessarily feel qualified to provide those services to anyone else. Or maybe like tenant landlord disputes. Again, you may have personal experience, but like you don't necessarily know anything about it in terms of to advise a client on it. So that can be another obstacle. Another one is lack of resources, I feel like. A lot of us that are in-house don't necessarily have a huge staff. And we don't have like, paralegals, legal secretaries and legal assistants and whatnot that a lot of those that work in private law firms have. And so that can make it very challenging to like keep track of cases that may drag on for years, literally. And another one could be lack of malpractice insurance. Even if there is malpractice insurance where you work, if you're in-house, that covers you for the work that you do for your company. It doesn't cover you for work you may do outside of the company. So those are some of the challenges and obstacles. But the thing to keep in mind is that a lot of times services that the underserved population needs can be pretty basic. So oftentimes, really all it requires is walking somebody through an application, for example, which I think most attorneys can do. Another is when it comes to that lack of expertise, you should keep in mind that a lot of these nonprofits have large staff, and those are people that are experts in all of those areas of law that you may be lacking. So it's not like you're like out there on your own with having to know the answer to every question. They're more than happy to help out. You can always ask questions. They usually have templates of documents that are needed. And so you can always get help. malpractice insurance issue can oftentimes be solved through these nonprofits as well. They oftentimes have malpractice insurance that covers their volunteers as well. And then I also already mentioned, another big one can be as well, the fact that you may be working for a smaller company that, I work for a smaller company that has 3 attorneys. So it's not really feasible to have a formal pro bono program in place. And it may seem kind of daunting to go out there and look for these opportunities on your own. But like I already mentioned, all the ways that you can find them pretty easily on your own. So it's just a matter of getting out there and doing it. But it's definitely possible and not all that challenging.
I love all the challenges that you shared, and even things that I probably didn't think about, but also the sort of ways to solve it and opportunity to problem solve. And if we're good at anything as lawyers, it is at this problem solving element. So that's a really good way to keep developing those most important skills that are transferable, that are yours to keep,
Yes.
whether you work and wherever you work. I'm curious, what has been sort of the most satisfying experience for you as doing pro bono community service? I remember mine when I was in a law firm. I actually did a bunch of immigration cases, and just like you said, I felt utterly unqualified because I actually appreciate the complexity of immigration in the United States. I can tell you, they lost my application 7 times. Did not lose my dad's application or my mother's. Actually lost my mother's application twice. My dad's 0 and I got 7. So I got to see the spread of the experience. I actually was filling out all of them. So I have like a unique perspective of what could possibly go wrong and what it means to prove that you exist. It's a very interesting conversation when you stand in front of somebody and you prove your existence as a stateless person, because not because my country ceased to exist, but because we had to surrender our passports on the board. So it's a deep, interesting conversation that really gets philosophical in 3 seconds. Like, what does it mean to be? So and then you understand the complexities of laws and transpose, and then it becomes really complicated. And so I had a lot of reservations, but I actually have been involved in many asylum and domestic violence cases around that, and it's been very satisfying experiences to see families win and get hugs and celebrate over Chinese dinner. So that has been my sort of memories of that, and very satisfying. And I'm really grateful that my firm supported me to essentially run a pro bono practice on the side. Actually, not so much even on the side, more like primary pro bono practice for the first 3 years in the law firm, in addition to my practice. But I'm curious for you, what has been sort of satisfying and memorable and sort of inspiring to, like, oh, can I do even more?
Yeah, so wow, there have been a lot of projects I've been involved in, and most of them have been satisfying for one reason or another. But I would probably say on the pro bono side, I would probably say that one of the most satisfying things that I've done was working on an adoption case through and with Alliance for Children's Rights, which for those that don't know, it's an LA-based nonprofit that provides assistance to vulnerable and neglected children, as well as runaways, emancipated youth, children in need of guardians, and families that step up to take care of them. And so that nonprofit, among other things, they have a lot of different things that they offer, but one of the things they offer is the opportunity to work on finalizing adoption cases, which are usually kids that have been neglected by their own parents and where the grandparents have stepped in to take care of them. And so they are ready to take that next step and adopt them officially. And so I handled adoption cases for them, and you basically work on all documentation needs to be filed with the court to get the adoption finalized. And then it all culminates in a special day called Adoptions Day. We actually go to the courtroom, and it's a special courtroom that just handles adoptions all day long. And so there are teddy bears in the courtroom, and really everybody's so excited. The judge is excited, the families are excited, and it's just a very, very special day. And on the community service side, I love large-scale projects like LA Work State that I talked about earlier. There's just something so special when thousands of people show up for a common cause. They are from all walks of life. And they're all ready to roll their sleeves and do the work. There's just so much buzz and energy in the air, and everybody's excited. And honestly, it never ceases to amaze me what a difference just a few hours of work can make. I mean, it literally can be a difference between night and day, between what a school may have looked like at the beginning of the day and what it ends up looking like at the end of the day. So I would say that's probably, I love those days.
Wow, wow. The teddy bears in the courtroom, oh my God, that is just too sweet. Thank you for giving me that image. It just it really improved my outlook on life, I think. Thank you for that. We are coming to the end. I have a few more questions. Um, I do want to dig in into sort of reason others and it feels good. And clearly, the image alone did it for me. I'm a very visual person. You can make my day, my life as a good image, and and befriend me with that. Um, Tell me anything else besides sort of feeling good. Any other reasons to do that you've been able to articulate
Yeah.
and maybe implement in your life to give back to do pro bono?
Yes, I think one of the things that I don't think most people think about when it comes to volunteering as a reason to get involved would be for networking purposes. I think if you're anything like me, you might find networking a little awkward and a little bit daunting at times to meet people that you don't know and strike up a conversation. So I think if you meet people through volunteering, at least you have one thing in common with them: volunteering. But also, it's it's a low impact kind of way in talking to people because you're busy working on a project together. And also, you tend to learn a lot more about somebody and then something that may be a lot more memorable than through like 5 minutes of conversation during a networking event, typical networking event. So that would be one. Two would be to develop and or demonstrate leadership skills. So I think a lot of people are very focused on climbing corporate ladder within their own organization. And there's only so much opportunity to climb the ladder and to frankly even learn a new skill and demonstrate that leadership skill. So, but if you volunteer with these nonprofits, you learn to lead, and you have a way to showcase your leadership skills, and it can be a great avenue for people to see you in a whole brand new light that they would have never gotten a chance to see you through just your own organization. So I think those would probably be two reasons that I think most people don't think about.
Yeah, I actually that those are really important to double click. I had an experience. My first general counsel job actually came from volunteering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's actually how I did not think I would go in house. And but I have this passion for art. I have almost 7 years of training in visual art, sort of across the board, from drafting to painting to
Yeah.
sculptures to art history. I enjoy doing large scale sculptures with a
Wow.
blowtorch and everything. Not little tiny thing that you may expect. That I really like fire. So
Wow.
for that is largely a dormant passion. Um, but there was a art nonprofit near my law firm, and I allocated hours to serve on the board. And the
Yeah.
organization was going through a lot of transition, and I was just sort of doing. And then I found myself with a job offer that was not nearly as good as the one I had at a law firm. And I found my first in-house title. I was a job for about like a year and a half, almost two. And I led the organization through various transitions. My first in-house title actually was general counsel, as voted by the board when the board realized that they gave me an offer without a title, actually, which I accepted, despite the fact that it was much lower than my then current salary. And because I finally realized that I was at the point of my life where I can do things that I actually enjoy. And what I do find really sort of my learning from that experience is that it's not that I think the opportunities in the corporate America are scarce. They actually are quite abundant. It's just sometimes they're not always merit
Yeah.
based.
Yeah.
There's this thing called politics, and and we lawyers are kind of in the midst of it, understand it maybe better, and it takes a while to navigate. Opportunities are like organizations in transitions where nobody really wants to take a pay cut,
Yeah.
or be a volunteer, and massive responsibility can lead to interesting
Yeah.
opportunities because you led with your passion as opposed to sort of money to divide on the
Yeah.
table, and it's really gives an opportunity independent of your seniority or any other trade
Yeah.
that is the total noise and should not be considered, and yet
Yeah.
considered every day in the normal corporate America.
Yeah.
And so it's an opportunity of a merit-based system of a passion
Yeah.
and intelligence and time commitment to propel you forward. And I experienced it early in my career, and in the process developed many skills. And that was for me a big moment where like, oh, I could be the in-house lawyer, and
Yeah.
actually not just an in-house lawyer. I can lead the organization through transitions, and I can
Yeah.
be impactful, especially if their mission resonates
Yeah.
and we're on the same page. So for me, that was actually early learning through pro bono services, and I highly recommend picking up skills when you are pivoting your career. Like, go find your passion and
Yeah.
apply yourself there. It will lead you to amazing places.
I agree.
Adriana, I have one more question. I know Little Bird told me that I know you have this passion for, for pro bono and community service, but I also know you're traveling around the world, have this adventure on the side. I encourage everyone to have adventures on the side. It's a healthy thing to do. I have many, have had many in my entire career, and they've propelled me forward to do things that I did not expect or plan for to do. So tell us about your international adventure. Tell us more.
Sure. So yeah, I love to take on new challenges and to visit what I think most people would consider to be unusual places. So I've done multiple marathons, triathlons, including full Ironman, multi-stage and multi-day ultramarathons in the desert around the world. So including Sahara, Gobi, Atacama, and Antarctica. I've also taken on Arctic Challenge in Finnish Lapland. I've slipped and slid my way through Sondon, which is one of the largest caves in the world located in Vietnam. I have trekked in Himalayas on the incredible snowman trek in Bhutan, highly recommended. I've also literally sweated my way through jungles of Papua New Guinea on the Kokoda trek. I had walked Camino de Santiago twice on 2 different routes. I have walked from one coast to the other of the United Kingdom, also highly recommended. So yeah, the list goes on and on, literally endless.
I love that. Those are great. I've done some of these adventures, definitely not all. Very exciting. Tell me how you think about it. How you what is it the physical element, or is it like what drives and kind of what's next, and how are you thinking about it?
It's not obvious. I do love the physical challenge of it too, but a lot of it is really mental, honestly. I can tell you that when I first got into ultra marathons, I did not necessarily, especially these in the desert. It's a completely different ballgame than a normal ultra marathon. It's feeling more like a survival test. So it's very, very mental, and there's just something about pushing through and getting it done. And I just love that these are all in such incredibly remote places that I honestly probably wouldn't get there on my own without these type of events. But the next thing that I'm most likely going to be doing this year is trekking on the Pico Trail in Sri Lanka. So that's next.
That is, I can tell you that is fun. That is exciting. And I'm just curious, I guess I was going to end there, but I'm actually going to ask you the question of how does that help translate to the things you do every day as a compliance officer?
I think it keeps me sane, honestly. But also, I just think that once you do one of these type of things, like you really feel like you can do anything and handle anything. So I think it really is compatible.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Your comment around the physical challenge is really a mental challenge, which I
Yeah.
think is a common thing in law. Once you learn to persevere and have a strategy,
Yeah.
something so basic as, heat and water. And in my case, I can't stand cold very much, even though I actually, was raised in Siberia, you would say, for
Oh, wow.
dramatic 4 years. Um, but learning to live through that was interesting. But that's why we likely will never move to East Coast unless we're talking Florida. Um, but in the end, it's ability to manage your thoughts and intentions and be productive in the end. I love that. We've covered so much ground, from payment to pro bono to how to be a mentally strong lawyer. I think it's been a good conversation, Adriana. Thank you so much. What is one takeaway you want folks to take from this conversation?
Just do it, as the Nike says. Honestly, I think, as I said, a lot of these things that I talked about, from pro bono to community service to all these challenges that I've mentioned, they may seem daunting. It may seem like you don't know where to start, but just do it. I went over a lot of things and covered a lot of ground here in this podcast in terms of how you can get involved, and you can do it. That's all I can say.
I love it. Just do it, and you can do it. Yeah. That is an important message. Adriana, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.